Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we are actually doing something a little bit different. Usually, we take a look at a specific event that just happened or maybe a piece of history. But today we are looking forward.
Right, yeah. We're looking at a roadmap.
Exactly. And it's a pretty big one. We have a whole stack of sources here.
Mhm.
So we've got strategy papers, planning documents, event flyers, and they're all for something called the International Red White Singing Festival.
Now, I feel like we should stop right there because I can almost hear your brain clicking over if you're listening to this. You're probably thinking, Red White Singing Festival, you mean the massive New Year's Eve TV show?
Yeah, we definitely need to clear the air immediately on that.
Yeah.
Because if you know anything about Japan, you know about Kohaku Utagassen.
Right.
It's essentially the Super Bowl of Japanese television. Red team versus white team, men versus women, just astronomically huge ratings.
But that is actually not what we are talking about today.
Not even close. What we are looking at is the International Red White Singing Festival, or IRWS. So it's the same basic name, but a totally different DNA. This isn't a glossy TV spectacle from a national broadcaster.
No, it's not.
It's this grassroots movement that has been quietly building up its momentum since 2011.
And, the teams aren't divided by gender either. They are divided by culture and language. The whole core premise outlined in these documents is multicultural coexistence.
Right.
So you have foreign residents performing it in Japanese, and then you have Japanese residents performing in multiple other foreign languages. It's a complete role reversal.
It's basically a musical exchange program happening live on a stage. But here's the thing. If this were just a local community talent show, we wouldn't be doing a deep dive on it today.
No, definitely not.
What makes this so fascinating is the sheer ambition. Our mission today is to break down this strategy document that outlines a plan to scale this local contest into a massive global diplomatic network by the year 2030.
Yeah, it really is a masterclass in bottom-up soft power. We aren't looking at heavy government treaties. We are looking at how you build international bridges using shopping malls, karaoke, and believe it or not, baseball.
You just gave away the best part.
Right.
But yes, baseball is heavily involved.
Yeah.
So we're going to break this roadmap down into three main pillars for you. First, the domestic expansion, which is how they plan to integrate this festival into the everyday lives of people in Japan.
The shopping malls.
Right. Second, we'll look at the massive global network of the Japanese diaspora. And third, the specific cross-cultural projects using anime and baseball to crack the U.S. market.
It's a wild mix of strategies when you put it all together.
It really is. So let's start with the home front. You mentioned this started back in 2011. Looking at the history in these planning documents, for the first decade or so, this was very much a Tokyo-centric event.
It was, yeah. From 2011 up until about 2019, the main venue was firmly planted in Tokyo.
Which makes sense.
It does. It was a capital city event, which is pretty standard operating procedure for international exchange. If you want to seem international, you host it in Tokyo.
But then, according to the documents, the center of gravity really shifts.
Drastically.
Yeah.
So around 2013 and 2014, they started testing the waters with selection rounds in Osaka. And then post-2020, the roadmap just shows a complete relocation. By 2021, and looking ahead to the 2024 and 2025 schedules, the main venue isn't Tokyo anymore.
It's Osaka.
Exactly.
That's a really significant move. Osaka has a totally different energy than Tokyo. It's grittier, friendlier, maybe a bit more open to this kind of grassroots, ground-level mixing. But what really stood out to me in the 2025 schedule isn't just the city itself.
It's the venues.
Yes. The strategy papers list upcoming events at AR Yao and Aeon Mall Kyoto. Now, if you haven't been to Japan, you might not know what those are, but these are massive, everyday suburban shopping complexes. They are not exclusive concert halls.
And that is exactly the point of the whole domestic strategy. This is their daily life approach.
Break that down a bit. Why is a shopping mall a better venue than a dedicated theater for a cultural mission?
Well, think about the audience. If you hold a multicultural coexistence concert in a fancy civic hall, who actually buys a ticket to that?
People who are already invested in that world, language students, activists, maybe people who have international families.
Right. You are just preaching to the choir. It is a completely self-selected audience. But if you take that same stage and set it up in the middle of Aoyao on a random Saturday afternoon.
You get everybody.
You get everybody. You aren't getting the activists. You are getting the family buying school supplies. You're getting the teenagers hanging out by the food court. You're getting the local grandmother doing her grocery run.
So you are basically ambushing them with international culture.
Ambush is maybe a strong word, but yes,
Right.
you are integrating the concept of foreigners singing fluently in Japanese into the background radiation of their daily life.
It normalizes it.
Exactly. It takes multiculturalism out of the special, formal diplomatic box and puts it right next to the bakery.
It's a really brilliant tactic. And looking at the schedule here, these mall events, like the one on March 8th and 9th at Aoyao Yao and August 16th at Ion Mall Kyoto, they are listed as heat-up projects.
Yeah, they are the runaway.
Right? They're building momentum for the main event. Which brings us to the expo.
The Osaka Kansai Expo, this is where the scale gets huge.
It does. The documents confirm that the 13th International Red White Singing Festival is an official partnership event with the expo. It is taking place right there at the expo site on September 19th, 2025.
That is a massive global platform. So you go from the local shopping mall straight to the world stage. But what I find really fascinating is the ping pong effect in their scheduling.
What do you mean by the ping pong effect?
Look at what happens right after the expo. So on September 19th, they are at the expo, which is the absolute height of global attention. Then just a few weeks later, on October 5th, the finals are held in Ikuno Ward.
Ah, okay. Ikuno Ward. That is a very specific, very intentional choice.
It is. Ikuno Ward in Osaka has one of the highest concentrations of foreign residents in the entire country. It is the actual beating heart of multicultural Osaka. So they are taking the massive energy from the global expo and channeling it directly back into the local neighborhood.
It reinforces the idea that this isn't just corporate or governmental posturing. It's for the community.
Right.
So that's the domestic side of the roadmap. Build a baseline in the shopping malls, spike the global attention at the expo, and then ground it all in the local community. But the part of the roadmap that really blew my mind was the international strategy.
The numbers in this section are just staggering.
The entire strategy pivots around one specific statistic, 4.2 million.
And that is the estimated number of Nikkei, which means Japanese descendants living outside of Japan today.
The sources frame this in a really compelling way.
Yeah.
They compare their ultimate 2030 goal to something called the Uchinan-Chu model. I actually had to look this up, but the logic is fascinating.
The Uchinan-Chu comparison is the real aha moment of the entire strategy paper. So, for some context, Okinawa is a distinct cultural region in southern Japan, and it has a massive global diaspora.
Right.
And every 5 years, they hold the worldwide Uchinan-Chu Festival.
With Uchinan-Chu meaning people of Okinawan descent.
Exactly. It's this huge emotional homecoming event. People fly in from Hawaii, from Peru, from Brazil. It's a massive celebration of their roots.
Yeah.
But here is the critical point from our source text.
The percentage.
Yes, Okinawan descendants only make up about 10% of that 4.2 million global Nikkei population.
Which leaves a 90% gap.
Exactly. The descendants of people who emigrated from Tokyo, from Hiroshima, from Fukuoka, the mainlanders, the argument these papers make is that this 90% doesn't have a homecoming event.
They don't have a specific anchor.
Right. They don't have a specific place or event to return to that celebrates their unique heritage in that same collective, structured way.
That is a huge market gap if you're looking at it commercially. But from a cultural standpoint, it's just a massive void.
It's a total void. And the International Red White Singing Festival's primary goal for 2030 is to step in and fill it. They want to establish a permanent event in Honshu, which is mainland Japan, that welcomes Japanese descendants from Brazil, the U.S., and Southeast Asia just as warmly as Okinawa welcomes its own diaspora.
So they basically want to be the default homecoming festival for almost 4 million people.
They are definitely not lacking in ambition.
No kidding. So if you want to capture that 90%, you obviously have to go to where they live. And according to the breakdown in the documents, the biggest piece of that global pie is Brazil.
Brazil is the absolute heavyweight champion of this demographic. There are approximately 2.2 million Nikkei in Brazil alone. That is more than half of the global total.
When I was reading the descriptions of the Brazilian community in the source notes, I was really surprised by how structured their cultural preservation is. This isn't just people casually remembering their grandparents. It is highly institutional.
It is arguably more structured there than some traditional arts are in Japan itself right now. Yeah, the documents describe this very rigorous generational transfer system. You have the first and second generations acting as the formal teachers. They are instructing the third, fourth, and fifth generations in Japanese dance, tea ceremony, martial arts, and crucially for this roadmap, karaoke.
The stats on the singing contests are wild.
They are almost unbelievable. The source mentions that in Sao Paulo alone, there are monthly amateur singing contests, all sung in Japanese, that draw 500 to 700 participants.
Wait, let me just pause there. 500 to 700 participants every single month.
Every month.
That is not a casual hobby.
Yeah.
That is basically a sports league.
It is a highly developed cultural infrastructure, and the festival organizers are smart enough not to try and reinvent the wheel here. They're just tapping directly into the pipeline that already exists.
Makes sense.
The plan includes an official selection round in Sao Paulo from July 18th to the 20th in 2025.
So they're treating Sao Paulo like a major regional qualifier.
Yes. They are partnering with the biggest existing amateur singing contest in the Nikki community there, one that has already been running for over 20 years. And they are going to pick 2 representatives from that specific contest to fly to Japan.
To perform at the Osaka Expo main stage.
Exactly. Just think about the narrative arc of that for a second. Imagine you are a 4th-generation Japanese Brazilian. You've grown up in Sao Paulo. You've been singing enka songs that your grandmother taught you.
Right.
Suddenly, you win this local contest, and you are flown across the world to the land of your ancestors to perform on a global stage at the World Expo.
That creates a bond that lasts a lifetime. That person goes back to Brazil and becomes an ambassador for life.
It creates a really powerful story, and stories are what actually bind these transnational communities together.
So the strategy for Brazil is all about history, deep roots, and preserving traditional culture. But when we transition to the strategy for the United States, specifically the Los Angeles project, the vibe changes entirely.
It is a complete 180-degree turn. The demographic target shifts completely. In Brazil, they lean heavily on tradition and ancestry. In Los Angeles, the entire strategy revolves around youth and pop culture.
The strategy papers explicitly list Japanese language learners and anime fans as the primary target audience in the U.S.
They are looking squarely at high schoolers and university students. The underlying logic here is that anime is the gateway. You watch the show, you fall in love with the characters, you start picking up the language, and eventually you want to sing the theme song.
And the actual mechanics of the exchange program here are really interesting because it's bilateral. They hold auditions in LA to send American singers to Japan. But they're also taking Japanese singers, both professionals and amateurs, and sending them to Los Angeles.
Right, but there's a very specific condition attached to the Japanese delegation.
They have to perform in English or Spanish.
Yes, which is a huge ask. For an amateur Japanese singer to fly to LA and perform in a foreign language, that is seriously intimidating.
It really pushes them out of their comfort zone. But this brings us to what might be my favorite detail in the entire 2030 roadmap. They have a very specific carrot to dangle in front of these Japanese singers to get them to apply.
I know exactly what you're going to say. I saw this in the planning document, and I genuinely had to read it twice.
The special incentive listed for the Japanese delegation is a Shohei Ohtani MLB game viewing tour.
It is just so delightfully specific. It's not a general sightseeing tour in Hollywood or a VIP trip to Disneyland. It is literally, come sing in LA and we will take you to see Ohtani play.
It is brilliant marketing. But if you peel back the layers of it, it's also thematically perfect for what they're trying to achieve.
How so?
Well, the document calls this a fusion of song, sports, and culture. Shohei Ohtani is, without a doubt, the single biggest Japanese cultural export of the 21st century right now. He is this massive global icon who just happens to be Japanese.
Then he happens to be in Los Angeles.
Right, so by tying this singing festival directly to the Ohtani experience, they're creating this ultimate cool Japan package. It appeals to the performer's national pride and their sports fandom all at once.
Use your voice to bridge cultures, and your reward is watching the master of baseball at work. It essentially turns a soft-powered diplomatic mission into a dream vacation.
It also acknowledges that culture isn't just traditional dance or tea ceremonies anymore. Sometimes your best cultural asset is a designated hitter.
Exactly. Soft power evolves with the times. And they aren't trying to do this in a vacuum either. The documents make a point to mention the strong local support systems they are relying on, like their collaboration with the Japanese Singers Association LA branch, as well as local volunteer networks.
That seems to be a recurring theme across the whole roadmap. Whether we are looking at the malls in Osaka, the massive contests in São Paulo, or the volunteer branch in LA, they are building permanent infrastructure. They are just hosting one-off events and leaving.
Which really brings us to the ultimate point of this whole roadmap. When you step back and put all these disparate pieces together, the suburban malls, the massive diaspora, the anime fans, the baseball tickets, what does this project actually look like in 2030 if they succeed?
The word that just keeps popping up over and over in the synthesis of these documents is network.
Specifically, a youth network. The vision outlined here isn't just about the concert itself. The concert is just the initial spark. They want to use social networking sites, or SNS, to permanently diffuse and maintain these connections.
They are going after the long tail of the event.
Yes, it is all about the Instagram follow, the TikTok duet, the WhatsApp group that forms after the stage lights go down. If a kid from Osaka and a kid from LA meet at the expo and keep talking online for years, that is the actual win for the organizers.
And the roadmap explicitly states their goal of achieving regularity.
They want to move away from being a series of special events and become a permanent annual fixture. By 2030, the goal is for this to be a completely self-sustaining global ecosystem.
There is also a very strong educational angle here that we shouldn't skip over. For all those language learners, this festival provides something that traditional textbooks just can't offer.
Practical, emotional application. It is one thing to sit in a classroom and conjugate verbs. It is an entirely different thing to memorize a song, understand the cultural and emotional nuance of the lyrics, and then perform it live in front of a crowd. It gives the language learning a real purpose.
And we also shouldn't overlook the impact this has back home in Japan. We talked earlier about those heat-up projects in places like Ikuno Ward.
Right, the community impact. We know Japan is facing a severe demographic crisis. The population is aging rapidly, and local communities are shrinking. By bringing in all this vibrant international energy, these young, passionate singers from Brazil and the U.S., they're trying to inject new life into these local areas.
It is using the power of globalization to actually revitalize the local neighborhood.
It is a really fascinating model. Usually when you hear the phrase global strategy, you assume we're talking about multinational corporations selling cars or exporting semiconductors.
Right.
But this is a highly detailed, globally coordinated strategy for singing, for building human connection.
It is soft power in its absolute purest form. And what I really appreciate about it is that it isn't top-down. It isn't a government ministry mandating international friendship from an office in Tokyo. It is bubbling up from the bottom. It's starting in shopping mall atriums, in the karaoke bars of São Paulo, and in the anime clubs of Los Angeles.
That is what makes it so resilient.
So let's recap this whole journey, because we have covered a lot of ground today. We started by debunking the initial myth. This is not the Kohaku TV show. It is the grassroots International Red-White Singing Festival.
Step one was definitely clearing up that confusion.
Then we tracked its evolution. We saw how it moved from a Tokyo-centric formal event to an Osaka-based movement that infiltrates daily life through everyday shopping malls, like Aereo Yao and Aeon Mall.
Taking the culture directly to where the people already are.
We looked at the massive ambition to connect the 4.2 million Nikki globally, using the Uchinan-shu model to create a dedicated homecoming event for the other 90% of the diaspora.
Which of course led us to the absolute powerhouse that is Brazil, with its 2.2 million people and a structured singing culture that rivals Japan itself.
And finally, we broke down the Los Angeles strategy, targeting the next generation through anime, pop culture, and the undeniable gravitational pull of a Shohei Ohtani baseball game.
Creating that perfect fusion of song, sports, and culture.
It is an incredibly comprehensive roadmap. It uses every single asset available to them, history, pop culture, sports, community infrastructure, to build this network by 2030. It really forces you to rethink what diplomacy actually looks like in the modern world. It isn't just ambassadors shaking hands in suits.
No, not at all.
Sometimes, diplomacy is a kid from São Paulo singing a traditional ballad in Osaka, or a Japanese amateur singer cheering their heart out at Dodger Stadium.
That really is the beauty of it. And, spending all this time analyzing this roadmap actually leaves me with a lingering question.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we see how they're using music as a tool. We see how they're integrating sports, specifically with the Ohtani Tour. Those are the designated vehicles for the 2024 and 2025 push. My question is, if this roadmap continues to expand toward 2030, what other soft power assets are we going to see integrated next?
That is a really great point. If you open the aperture beyond just baseball and anime, what is next in the pipeline? Is it food? Is it technology? video games.
Exactly. If music and baseball are the main hooks for 2025, what is the hook for 2030? Because
Yeah.
once you actually build that network, that youth network they talk about, the infrastructure is there to transport literally anything across cultures.
That is definitely something for you, the listener, to mull over. If you were the one designing a festival to seamlessly connect 4.2 million people around the world, what would your hook be?
I think I would probably stick with the baseball tickets, to be completely honest. It is a very solid strategy.
It is pretty hard to beat Otani right now. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 2030 roadmap of the International Red White Singing Festival.
It's been a pleasure.
See you next time.